Right.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tacobout It Tuesday with This is Improv. My name is Angelica and this is our guest for today, Josh Rapp.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. We're making it. Coffee is helping.
Yeah, coffee always helps. Mm-hmm. There's not enough coffee in the world to help.
That's
really
very true. Very true.
Mm-hmm. And I like the blue cup. The blue mug looks.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I'm a vagabond. I've lived in many cities over the course of several years, but this is the other side has an emblem. I don't know if it's free publicity, so I'm. But there's a coffee shop in Hattiesburg, and if you've ever been in the theater department ever at USM, you know where it is, and I don't have to explain it, and that's where this is from. It's a hipster secret.
It's a hipster secret.
Yeah, when you move to Hattiesburg, you get a special invite, and then you know where the coffee shop is. So, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So, okay. No special invite for me. You have a special invite. Your ultimate VIP. Okay.
Ultimate VIP. Yeah, perfect.
The hipsters.
Absolutely.
So, Josh, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name's Josh Rapp. Pronounced just like it looks and sounds. And I am a theater actor, film actor, voiceover actor, and streamer. Currently based in Atlanta, Georgia. I got my MFA in theater performance from the University of Southern Mississippi. A casual plug for my alma mater. If you're looking for school, you should go. There's some wonderful people still enrolled, and the faculty is amazing. It's like a hidden gem. So still doing that service. I'm passionate about that program. So I went to school there in grad school, did some instructor record, taught some online courses, kind of things like that. And then I moved to Atlanta in the middle of a pandemic, which is exciting.
Yeah. Great move.
Yeah. So I make the joke that people ask me how's living in Atlanta. I've been here since February, I think. And I make the joke that I'm like, my house is great because everything's been closed. I mean, and it's for good, right? It needs to happen. It's just, that's been the things that have been here. That's pretty much it.
It'll be interesting when this is, so in 2022, you'll discover a whole new world. This is
yeah, exactly. No, it'll be like one of those what is it, a Truman Show? When he's let out of the room and he's like, this is the real world. That's kind of how it feels. Yeah. But as an introvert, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love it, but I also don't. I'm a weird mix. I'm like a mesovert, right? I don't know if you know that term, but I lie in the middle.
Okay.
I like people throughout my day, but I like to begin and end it alone, if that makes sense.
How did you get started? What is the beginning of your journey in the arts? Yeah, I know. Way back.
We're coming out swinging with the big questions. So my journey was kind of a super interesting one. I did not start as a theater person. And a very eclectic upbringing. I mean, as obvious by the totally normal, boring, lamb-blazed person that I am. And it makes total sense that I would do that. So I started studying in the sciences, software engineering, physics, and biology as well. And I just wasn't happy, right? I was like, oh, I'm gonna do these things, make money, but I hadn't a passion, whatever. So I was in an introduction to theater course at Tennessee Tech in Tennessee, and I was asked to go see the Vagina monologues, and I was like, what is this? What do I have to watch this for? What is this this garbage play? I have to go see a play. I have to watch this one. And so I went in and watched with all the preconceived notions a conservative heterosexual white male would be walking in. And I left crying. I left actually tearing up. Yeah, I know, right? What a twist. No, and it was because I never had that experience. I never had that. I'd never been put up against the struggles of people, specifically in that time of persuasion of women. But what hit me the most is I didn't realize that my place in it, right? It's something that I guess you can say 100 times, but until you realize it for yourself, you won't know it as to be a fundamental truth. And I wasn't aware that my inaction was perpetuating a system that was oppressing people that I loved. And so it hit me really hard. And it was the first time that I'd always been a kid that wanted an artistic outlet. I played a bunch of instruments and stuff, but nothing really clicked. Couldn't draw for anything, but I knew I had been craving an artistic outlet and I didn't know what it was. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll get involved and do sound design or some kind of scenic design for shows because that's what I know how to do and I can do whatever. So I got brought on board to do to do that. Like I got brought on board to do some scene design, whatever, and had a good time. And I made the mistake of auditioning for a play, and I got cast as Norman starts from a girl, and the bug started. I did like 30 shows in 2 years, something like that. I was like latticing shows on top of each other. And like, I don't know how much of a parable, an anecdotal story you want in my life, but so
the whole thing,
the whole thing.
Wow.
Buckle in, everyone get ready. 12 hours of improv. But the short version is I was still not committed to acting still. Like I loved doing it. I was doing shows, had a great time, but I was still doing other things. I just didn't think I was going to make money. I was worried about it. My family, I love all of them with the exception of my mom. Not really close with any of my family members. My mom, I could talk about her for 27 hours because she is one of the most amazing women I've ever seen in my life, which is why one of the reasons vagina monologues affected me so much is I like, not only when I got to the point where I was like, oh wow, women are going through things that I can't relate to and understand, but then like the women that I was close to and loved, specifically like my mom, like I can't imagine what her life has been like purely because she was born as a woman, and that was incredibly powerful to me, right? So as I was saying, like, I just hadn't committed to doing the thing. There's a man whom I love who has departed. He's one of the dearest people in my life. He was like an 80-year-old man that was a software engineer in the Valley who used to audit classes in theater because he loved community theater. His name was Don. And after one class, we had a creative dramatics class, which was basically like how to use puppets and stuff to teach like classes, and it was just coursework. And he goes, "Hey, do you want to get coffee?" And I talk about this a lot. And I said, "I can't. I have a differentials equation exam." He's like, "Why do you have a diffie exam in theater?" I was like, "Well, I'm not a theater major." He's like, "Well, why aren't you a theater major?" I said, "Well, there's a lot of things. I'm afraid I can't money. I'm not good enough to do this. Like, I have a good time, but it's a small program, whatever. I can't do it. I can't afford the books. I just can't." He's like, "Oh, well, I understand. That's great." So that night, I was pretty sure that night or the next night, it was Rocky Horror. Playing Riff Raff. I know. It's obvious casting choice. Totally makes sense. So I went to the green room, and my director said, "Hey, you should pop in the green room." I was like, "All right, great." So I popped in the green room, and sitting on the table was a stack of books, a change of major form, a check, and a letter. And it was from Don. And he said, "Look, I know people have told you you're good, but I don't think anybody's ever told you you're good enough to do this the rest of your life. Here's your check. Change your life." So I did, and I never looked back. And it was really powerful to me because when I was thinking about, I went and I worked professionally, had some struggles, wasn't sure about grad school. Like I just didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. And unfortunately Don had passed away. And I was informed that I was requested to be there because I was asked to be in his will. Like I was asked to be there and do some things for his funeral and stuff. And he had written me a letter, and he willed me a bunch of fedoras, which I still own. Like, I don't think that I'm hipster enough yet to wear fedoras. But he gave them to me, and he told me, and he said, "These are for you when you're on New York. You'll never look as good as I did in them, but I'm hoping you'll have them when you make it. And if you give up on this dream, now that I'm dead, I can haunt you forever." So I got like, I don't know, like, so that's how I got into the arts, and that's how I started working. And that's kind of what tailored my my journey, right? Is that I believe every interaction with every person is a chance to try to lift them up and make them like feel comfortable. Like I don't see any of my work as like, oh, look at all the cool things that I am doing, but as a chance to help other people on a journey that to answer questions by my experience, I guess. A long-winded answer. I hope that's what you wanted.
It's what I wanted. Yeah, thanks. I feel the breeze. It's gentle, but strong. That's an incredible story. Like, what an origin story.
Right?
Yeah, that's really an epic starting. Yeah.
Right, but I think it's important. I think it's true of all actors too. And I was both a teacher or just as a actor looking at a character or working or whatever. I think it's historically true that if you look at one person, if one person's story regaling to you is only about themselves and not the people that got them there, it's not an authentic story. I mean, it's probably the reason that I try to work as hard as I do and try to do things that I do. It's not because it's for me. It's like I feel the weight of everybody who ever gave anything up for me to have a chance. Yeah. And I'm not ignorant of that fact, and I don't think anybody should be.
Yeah. No man is an island, right?
True. Or woman.
Or woman. Yeah. Thank you. Opening it up. Nobody is an island.
Exactly. No one is an island.
Islands.
Except islands. Islands are islands. Most of the time.
Yeah, unless under the water we're missing something, some connective surface.
Then no longer island. Or is an island, then would be a mountain. I don't know. I'm not a scientist anymore.
So do you have any productions that have been one of your favorites, something that's left an emotional, I guess, scar for the better on you?
Oh,
Anything
yeah.
happy?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Anything?
Yeah, so I have a couple of short ones. I will say that the first play that I felt like I did work, meaning that like the first play where I felt like I made art and wasn't just saying lines on stage, had to be The Diviners. I played Buddy, which is a beautiful play about this boy that has some mental trauma because he almost drowned as a kid. His mom has died, and he's always looking for her. And it begins with his eulogy. Like, it begins with him, hey, this is the memory of Buddy and how he died. And then you do an entire play and you forget. You're like, oh, it's a lovely moment. Like, it's a lovely play. Like, everything, all these cool things happening. And at the end, you die, and the audience is like, what? Why is he dead? But it was like the first time that I really felt connected to the work that I had, the preparation had come through, and it felt really good about it. I also did my creative thesis on cabaret and played the MC, and I was very, very fortunate to be a part of a production that was very different, trying to highlight some realism. I mean, ultimately, was it the most effective cabaret you'll see? Like, I don't know if it'd be as successful on Broadway because it didn't have a lot of the flashy things, but I think I got to work with some personal people who first generation survivors and a lot of stuff that was really cool, and it was a lovely experience for me. So that was really powerful. A fun moment. I don't know if one of my best friends in the planet will watch this video, but if he does, we have a long-going thing that one of our favorite shows that ever did was every Christmas story ever told and then some. And that's written by the same people who did Shakespeare Abridged.
Oh, cool.
And and the premise is that I played a character who they're doing Christmas Carol for the 47th time, and everyone else is bored, so they make a deal that if by act 1 they cover every single Christmas story ever, they'll do Christmas Carol in the second act. So that's what they do until they realize that they've forgotten to do why is my brain is gone. The one with Mr. Gower, the guy in the wheelchair with the blanket, it's gone.
They forgot your,
true. But so anyway, so the point is that we forgot to do that play. It's going to come to me. I'm going to yell it in my sleep tonight. But anyway, the point was, the reason that was one of the most fun shows I've ever done is because it was the first time a director took 3 people he thought were funny and said, have a good time. I'll make sure you don't burn the theater down. And I'll make sure the story's coherent. But it was the first time as an actor I got trusted with my craft, if that makes sense. So even though it was like a fun show in a tiny little theater for like an audience, packed house of 50, because that's all that seating would hold. It was a really good time to just cut loose and have a good time with art, which was sometimes a struggle. You don't always have to, like, I'm a deep believer and it should be deep thinking. And a lot of art has to have a statement, but sometimes around like Christmas, sometimes you just want 3 people to be funny, right?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because each production too, it has a different, exactly what you're saying. Like, there's a different purpose behind it, and it also has different styles that it needs to be led through with. Next up, is there anything that you're working on at the moment that you want to advertise and show?
Oh, sure. So I'm working on a play with Pump House Theater, at a production of Emma the Pop Musical.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm playing one of the love interests, which is a good time. Working digitally is an adventure, and so it's an adventure that I'm currently going on.
Oh, so it's digital.
Yeah. It's a musical. It's a digital musical.
How? Can you explain that a little bit? Sure.
I think it's fair to say that the process is still ongoing and they're still explaining it to us. So for right now, it's through Zoom, and the lines are pretty good, but I mean, there's that delay when you're working online.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have done it through Discord and apps and things like that. I'm not sure how they're going to tackle it. They're a whole musical director. As with many things, like as an actor, I just nod and I'm like, yes, I'm here to do my job and say his lines and give you the best performance and trust that they'll solve it out. We got plenty of time. I think they'll solve it. I'm interested myself to see how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's super exciting. But yeah, it's a musical. I mean, but I think every actor would tell you that working digitally has its challenges, both as an artist and a thing, and this one is no exception.
Yeah, I can't imagine a musical only because of the sync, right? So that's the thing that's blowing my mind right now. But yeah.
I don't know, but for me, so I think the music will happen. Like, there's plenty of time. For me, there's the struggle for me is the work as an actor.
Okay.
If that makes sense. I explain. Perfect.
Yes.
So she's going to hate me for saying this, but I'm using her as an example. I use it all the time. But one of the most prolific actresses I ever worked with, her name's Lauren Gunn. And I use her as a quintessential example because acting with Lauren is an experience that I've had on a very rare few occasions, in the sense that she is the kind of actor that when you work with her, you walk into a room, like it doesn't matter where you are in your day, how upset you were, if you didn't sleep, like if your stuff was due, like it doesn't matter what emotional state you were, because working with Lauren was like working with a cyclone, in the sense that she was like bubbly and super fun and everything's happy and you're like best friends or whatever right up until time to work, and when you're working, you were holding on. Like, I can't tell you how many times I did a scene with her and it was super intense and connective and great work, a wonderful Meisner actor as well. And you would leave the other side of the rehearsal going like, what time is it? What day is it? What year is it? Like you were so drawn in from start to finish that you had no idea what happened. And she was amazing to work with. And so that kind of connection is hard to do digitally. And so I'm working with these lovely people, and I don't know if they're watching it now, but they barely know me. We only had a couple of rehearsals, but like looking at them through the lens, like on the TV, I can see how good they are. You know what I mean? Like I can tell that if we were in person, like I can see that connection. Like I can see the level of like connectivity that we have in a scene, and it's no fault of anybody's own other than, you know, COVID. But that connection is difficult. Like that. Like trying to find that humanism, because actors work that way, or at least I would argue that a lot of them do. So it's a struggle, but that's why we went to school, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's why you learn techniques. It's a toolbox. I've always found that techniques don't make you necessarily inherently better. You don't learn Meisner or Stanislavski and you're like, oh yes, I'm the best to ever live now. But you use tools to apply to difficult situations, and I don't think this is any different. I think this is why I went to grad school. I think this is why actors train. I think this is why actors read books, is so they're presented with a challenge they're struggling with, and instead of throwing in the white flag and going, this is the best performance that I'm possible to give you, you go back to what you've learned, and that's when you apply what you knew, I guess.
Yeah, and I definitely understand, you know, we've been doing just Zoom since March, mm-hmm. and we've gotten used to it, but it's not the same, you know, connection that you would feel, or, you know, some of the things are lost that you have face to face, especially the connection, the human connection, and we can feel it, or we could look for it, like eye contact. I'm holding eye contact with you, and I feel like you're holding eye contact with me, but we're just looking in boxes and screens.
Like a lens. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, it's strange, but yeah, like what you're talking about, that toolbox and pulling from that toolbox to help you, mm-hmm. It definitely is. I mean, I've noticed it, pulling from different things and different techniques, but yeah, as far as reading from the scripts and everything that you do, and having to sing along with a group of people over the internet, you know, and using so many tools at the same time, essentially, and then utilizing the mechanical tool you have in front of you. That's cool. Right. You're multifaceted. No, I think so. I've had long conversations with people much smarter than me about this, but I think, I mean, it's a very unfortunate situation for theaters. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had a couple contracts that got canceled, like that just disappeared because of. Mm-hmm. But I also think it can be a good thing too, right? So here's a side tangent that won't be very long, but it's something I'm passionate about. I have a whole diatribe. My old roommate and I used to sit for many hours sipping coffee and tea and talking about this. But I have a whole diatribe about accessibility of theater, mm-hmm. right? Like I think sometimes theater's really good, like when the art requires it to be inaccessible. But sometimes it just doesn't make sense to me when it's a show for only 2 people in a back street of New York, and you have to follow a map and wait 2 months to get it, and it's 4 hours long. It's just like it's not accessible, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that these problems that we're having are good because there's a lot of accessibility, because there's a lot of communities that don't have access to a community theater. Like there's a lot of places that don't have it, but they do have access to some kind of like digital medium or something like that. And while it's an unfortunate scenario, like all of us would like absolutely like to be in a theater, our cold, dark, safe, cold space we call home. Yeah. I don't think we should lose this. I don't think we should let go of this. I think this is
foray into, I almost said foyer. It's the entrance to a house of
Yeah.
a foray
Close.
into, close. It's close enough.
Uh-huh.
I'm saying these words myself. No one wrote them for me. That's why I'm lost. But I think it's a chance for us to do kind of some in-person experimental research into how to make theater accessible. And I don't think we should lose that. I think it's a really golden opportunity for people to experience arts in ways they haven't before.
Yeah, there's actually been research going into this from what I found going back to 1996. So yeah, and now people have to get on board, unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time.
Right.
You should look up cyber drama, which is the
term
people are using for it. The last thing that I need to collect, information about what's going on in the world and, fulfill my life is understanding one thing about you that no one could tell just by looking at you.
Ooh, that's a big question.
Mm-hmm.
A hard question. One thing that no one could tell without looking at me.
By just looking at you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think one thing you couldn't tell, this is kind of a plot twist, I think. But one thing you couldn't tell about me, I would say, is I think I was destined for the actor world as an aesthetic chameleon before I knew it.
Okay.
Because you can literally troll back through my socials of pictures that exist. And I kind of exactly mimic what I was studied or focused on at the time. Like there was definitely a period where I wore glasses and had pocket protectors. So I think something that's interesting to me that you wouldn't know by looking at me, because you'd be looking at a snapshot of me, is that whenever I'm like in a certain place in my life or working on things, like I become like a aesthetic and like complete facet of that. Like, so if like definitely when I became an actor, I definitely owned a lot. I bought more clothes in black than I've ever owned in my life. My closet is now primarily in that chromatic, like monochromatic hue. But I think that's something that people wouldn't know about me, is that whenever I'm like focused on something, whatever it is, and like that becomes my facet, that becomes like aesthetics, like what I'm reading, like what I'm talking about, it just becomes like my sole focus.
Everyone, thank you for joining us. This has been Josh Rapp, and this has been Tacobout It Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us with This is Improv. While you're here, please take some time to look below. We have descriptions of things going on in our area and ways that you can help. If you have anything that you'd like to add to the list, email us at info@thisisimprov.com and we will add that to the list. Please also stay tuned for more awesome content. Every Tuesday we have a guest talking, such as wonderful Josh here. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.